After the original GBA game, apparently the idea was so successful that it didn't spawn just 1 or 2 sequels, but an entire spin-off series of 6 Mario vs. DK games, starting with this next shot on the DS, March of the Minis. Now, the DS is one of the perfect consoles for puzzle games with its touchscreen and stylus capabilities, so it was only natural that it would apparently be a fantastic series for Nintendo's handheld flagship. There was a little bit of a big deal about this game being the return of the lost character Pauline to the Mario series. That woman who Mario rescued from Cranky Kong and now Donkey Kong is properly getting the chance to do what his father could not. The reason why is frankly facepalm branded stupidity. DK shows up to an event where Mario is dedicating a building with his girlfriend Pauline, and after the building is dedicated, Mario gives Pauline a mini Mario toy to commemorate the occasion, and at precisely that second, DK rushes up to the stage and tries to give Pauline a mini DK toy to show his affection, and when Pauline obviously accepts the mini Mario, DK kidnaps Pauline in a fit of heartbroken jealousy, and Mario has to use his army of sentient toys to save her from DK. Unlike the original game, because this was the DS, Nintendo decided to go full stylus controls for its control scheme, which is why you're constantly seeing my mouse cursor on this emulated footage, and has no button commands for anything in the game. It's not the most egregious of Nintendo forcing its gimmicks onto games that don't need them, but it's certainly not the best option this game could have went with. The game requires so many long stylus pokes and swipes to directly control the mini Marios that when you start getting into late game levels, you really see how this truly screwed the game right over. Having these long stylus strokes to control your character when split-second movements are suddenly needed becomes difficult, especially if you have to start manipulating multiple mini Marios spread across the entire screen, and then 1 or 2 of them will die since you didn't solve their issue in the same second you saw them in a predicament. Naturally, the stylus can also be misinterpreted by the DS if you need them to jump or stand still. It's not the worst example of this in the DS's library, but it's still not good. My solution would have been to let us select mini Marios by poking them with the stylus, and then directly control them with the buttons. The puzzles are a bit better in the sequel since you have to save multiple Mario toys, and each of the game's 8 worlds has 9 puzzles and a boss for each. However, unlike the original, this game doesn't have a New Game Plus that has more puzzles, so you could technically say that the original had more content, but the sequel has better quality puzzles that take a bit more time and thought to solve. However, a minor problem the game has is that its puzzle elements aren't explained very well. The game does have a help option in the menu that will clear things up, but they aren't required to see, which I think is something that makes the game lack something important as a puzzle platformer. Clearly defined elements, especially the DK toys, some of which you can run into for help and others that'll kill your Mario toys. The game is almost exactly set up as the original with the bookended cutscenes, the overly goofy storyline, and the game is entirely the puzzles without context. And yeah, the puzzles are decent, but without a narrative being told throughout the game. The puzzles go without context and they come off as being a pointless filler game. I'm sure there are games out there that do this type of thing better, so I don't think it's just because I'm not in love with the total puzzle game genre that I'm moreover bored with the March of the Minis and the current Mario vs. DK series games that I've played. Maybe something good will come together over the next 4 games, but at this point I'm starting to feel that this series has only gone on so long because these games were cheap to make and there was enough interest from consumers that it technically made a profit. The puzzle game genre is a huge market now with tons of play with the more casual game player, especially with mobile and Facebook as a platform making these games even easier to be released and to be played, and I don't fault them for that. Like a lot of people, I've played browser and Facebook 3-match and word games, so these things do have popularity, and especially with these games being built for dropping in and dropping out. The puzzle genre is becoming less story dependent. However, when you play a puzzle game on a dedicated console, the expectation for higher production value is going to be there, so contextless puzzles are not going to fly without super unique puzzling gameplay, especially with how many options are out there nowadays in comparison to 2005. If this game came out today, it would fall into the background instantly, which might explain the sequels being stopped. There really isn't a lot to talk about with this game. I've kind of described the gameplay. You can move platforms around by poking them, you can make your Marios jump onto enemies. You know, there's a bit more thought that goes into the puzzling, there's a bit more complexity to it. There are technically unique level designs amongst the extra levels, but really, they're just different backgrounds for the same puzzles. There isn't a lot of different gameplay changes that would make the worlds that you run through very unique and interesting, and it just all falls into the background and becomes really repetitive after a while. The DK boss fights try to liven things up, but they're so quickly defeated and the combat is so simple to beat DK in almost every one of them that it really doesn't do anything more than just add into the repetition and make me more bored as I was playing this game. The game's overall setup is so similar to the original and without any additional investment in cutscenes or storytelling that it really is just the puzzles that you get, and yeah, they are a bit stronger than the original, but since there's no context to any of them, the only satisfaction in finishing them is just getting closer to the disappointing ending. The stylish controls are somewhat annoying and a bit too loose to be truly useful because not only can your Marios walk in wrong directions, but they can also bump off each other and make them move themselves when you need them all to stand still in a group. The game is a decent enough time sink, and that's pretty much all it's got going for it. The puzzles are the only gameplay it has, and while they're decent enough to fill up a game, they aren't engrossing or overall that satisfying to complete because you don't need to save 100% of the Mario toys to get to the ending. Hell, I could personally have been 25% worse at the game and still be completely fine, since the only thing the number of Mario saved affects is how much health you get during the boss fight, and you don't need anything close to 100% to get it all done. I was able to beat this game in around 3-ish hours, so again, it is a time sink, but there are other ones out there more worth of your money and time. At this rate, I think I'm going to be throwing out recommendations for this entire series, but I'll hold off on a final opinion for a couple games in this series until I decide to give up on the thing entirely, or, you know, maybe one will actually be the highlight in this series of garbage. For now, let's get a scoreboard up. And leave you guys with a final victory for gamers. Thanks for tuning in.